Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tesla stock did it. We closed above $220 per share. This is our critical, really, level of resistance dating back to the trend line that connects all-time highs and every other material rally we have seen since then. So this level of 220 is not just important because it's a round number, it's 220, it's very significantly important on a technical basis. Now, Tesla stock follows the technicals unlike any other stock we have seen before. So what does this suggest is coming next for Tesla stock? We'll talk about that here in this video. We could actually be embarking on a short squeeze for Tesla, which, yes, we've seen signs of this. And if this trend and momentum continues, pretty soon you're going to have what could be almost 90 million shares that start to cover on their short positions. With that said, we do have some Tesla stock breaking news to get into. We will go over positioning in Tesla and what's going on currently in markets. So we have a lot to get into in a very short amount of time. Let's go ahead and jump into it. First and foremost, let's start with some of your Tesla stock news. Tesla will soon release the following features via an over-the-air update. Display construction on your route with an icon. Predictive text for navigation searches. Search this area. You'll now be able to search this area when you're searching for something specific if you drag the map to a different location. And mobile app notifications for tire service. The vehicle can now inform you when it's in need of a tire change or tire rotation. GM says they're confident that GMC Sierra will outsell the Cybertruck, Ford, Rivian, and others. And Joe Tedmeyer yesterday shared this image of a ton of Cybertrucks in the outbound lot at Giga Texas, and there's so many triangles. Just look at them. That's beautiful. Has launched its very own Amazon storefront in Canada, giving Tesla and electric vehicle owners the opportunity to purchase the wall connector and universal wall connector through the online retail giant. It is also being reported that Tesla is going to invest $13.5 million in green technology development in Malaysia. And this news is a couple of days old now, but I think it is something that you need to hear. Uber and General Motors Robo taxi unit Cruise have announced a multi-year partnership to deploy autonomous vehicles on the Uber platform. The companies plan to launch the partnership next year with a dedicated number of Chevy Bolt-based autonomous vehicles. Once launched, when an Uber rider requests a qualifying ride on the Uber app, they may be presented with the option to have that trip fulfilled by a Cruise autonomous vehicle. And I do think this is a win for the entire industry. One, just to get people kind of used to taking autonomous, robo-taxis rides. That's going to be good for Tesla. And also, I think it's inevitable that there will be some kind of Uber-Tesla partnership as well. I don't think Uber is just going to sit back and watch their market get dominated by robo-taxis. And we can see new images of the Model Y, what could be Juniper that's coming next year. This could be a refreshed version of the Model Y. You can see it's pretty much covered up all around. And we can now see via this YouTube video, this drone footage of two Tesla semi-trucks that arrived in Giga Berlin. And used Tesla prices fall below $30,000 for the first time in Australia. The drive-ins estimate suggests over 115,000 Tesla vehicles on Australian roads. As Tesla Chan reported yesterday, Giga Shanghai produced 88,553 vehicles in July. This is the highest production volume this year. Through this, Giga Shanghai reached a milestone of over 500,000 vehicles produced this year. James Cap says he thinks Q3 production will be very strong because number one, domestic demand is strong, and number two, they want to build up supply ahead of Q4 downtime for model updates. And Tesla China on the 22nd announced the third city list of urban lane level navigation supported with Baidu Map V20. Tesla's short interest of free float sitting at 3.12%. You have $18.28 billion currently sold short in Tesla stock, totaling 86.77 million shares. If you take a look at Friday's activity, you had return shares of 2.32 million and borrowed shares of 3.68 million. So it actually looks like there was about 1.4 million shares that were on net sold short on Friday. But what we've actually seen in recent days is anywhere from 1 to 3 million shares that are just on any given day being net covered. So shorts have actually been covering on Tesla stock. And I do think that short covering could really ramp up over the next couple of weeks. Number one, because we're heading into the Robo event on October 10th. Number two, the only thing that really matters right now is the economic data. If the economy looks like it's holding up and the Fed is going to start cutting rates, that is a very bullish backdrop for Tesla. The caveat here is if the economy is not holding up and the economy gets worse and the labor market gets worse, then we are up shit's creek quickly. Okay? That's the caveat. It's not going to matter if the Fed is going to cut rates more aggressive. The only thing that matters is the economic data. And again, if that comes in bad, that's going to be a problem. But if the data comes in good or okay or not that bad, then Tesla stock is going to be moving higher over the next couple of weeks. And there are reasons to suspect that the economic data is not going to fall apart before the election. I mean, the government overstated job creations by almost 1 million in the last 12 months anyways. So, I mean, what is it to tweak around some numbers and make things look a little bit better than they potentially are from now until the election? In fact, the economy is really the biggest driving impact to elections. If people feel great about the economy, you're much more likely to stay in power. If people do not feel great about the economy, you're much more likely to lose. But nonetheless, what we seen on Friday was Tesla stock was up 4.59% and up another 0.24% in after hours, carrying that strong momentum into after hours trading. That's another pretty dang good sign that things are likely to be more bullish from here for Tesla stock. And I know, Jackson Hole tends to historically be a very negative event. You tend to fall like 1.4% during the speech, and then the next day after the speech, you tend to be negative 1.3%. So you tend to be down almost 3% in 2 days, historically speaking. And you've only had 2 positive speeches from a, Federal Reserve chairman. And that was 1995, and that was 2007. You could argue that both of those times, the markets actually thought we were going to have a soft landing. Even 2007, Wall Street was pretty convinced we were going to have a soft landing at that time. Yes, it was going to be bumpy. There was mixed data. But it really wasn't until September of that year when Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers went bust. Bear Stearns happened earlier in the year around March or so. And then, Lehman Brothers happened, I believe it was September 15th. Don't quote me, September 15th, 2007. And that's where everything kind of came crumbling down. But during that Jackson Hole speech in August, people were pretty convinced of a soft landing because the Fed had jacked rates up to, where rates currently are. And I think Wall Street was pretty convinced of a soft landing during that time. So the only 2 instances where Wall Street believed we were actually going to have a soft landing, you actually did well following Jackson Hole. Even again, 2007, which that proved to not be a soft landing. But 1995, you did very well following Jackson Hole. And then you kind of just traded sideways for a period. And then you ripped higher in November, December, January, and February of subsequently 1996. So it's really going to come down to the economic data here. That's what matters. This Jackson Hole event could be very positive for markets, or it could turn out to be another 2007 like moment. It really just depends on what the data does. But from Tesla's, standpoint, we do have this big catalyst coming in about a month and a half or so. And I think you're going to see shorts covering. I think you're going to see some upside pressure on Tesla stock between now and then. And it wouldn't surprise me if you do start to see shorts covering on an even larger scale. Because do you really want to be short heading into that event on Tesla stock when we were just at $271 per share? Tesla's now at $220. There's a lot of room for an upside, movement even heading into that event, if not after that event. And I think now with the Fed looking at cutting rates, with the base case from the market's perspective of a soft landing, these are things that you really don't want if you are short in Tesla. Like, that's not a negative framework. That's a very positive setup for Tesla stock. And then there's other factors as well to consider. When the Fed does start to actually lower rates, then your risk-free yield will fall. 10-year Treasury yields have already fallen. Okay, that's the longer end of the curve. But the short end of the curve, 3-6 month Treasuries are still trading in the 4% range. Okay. At least last I checked. We can go ahead and double check. Yeah, 3-month Treasuries are still at 5.02%. 6-month Treasuries are at 4.74%. So especially as the Fed does start to actually cut rates, those yields will fall more than long duration. Long duration may fall as well, like the 10-year, but that puts a lot more potential emphasis on growth, right? On buying growth. Because if you can no longer get these really high yields anywhere on the yield curve, then you start to look at Tesla a little bit differently. You start to look at Tesla and other growth stocks in a sense of, what can I get out of this company versus a 3% yielding 10-year Treasury, right? It starts to become a little bit more attractive to invest your money in growth. And that's why growth tends to do well in low interest rate environments. It's not just because the cost of capital is cheaper. It's also because if there's nowhere else to invest your money for growth, then, well, buying some Tesla, buying some growth makes a lot of sense. Let's also be honest, this part's really not rocket science. Whenever you go through these big rallies, you tend to fall a lot, but then you come up to at least almost retest the highs. Right here, you fell a lot, came up, almost retested the highs. Fell a lot, came up, almost retested the highs. Fell a lot, came up, almost retested the highs. And I guess ever since like the start of 2024, that pattern did not remain as true, and that was because Tesla was having its own struggles with cutting prices and a lot of bad news. But it's just not going to surprise me if you fall a lot and then come back up to test the highs at the bare minimum. You could see Tesla in the 260s. I think this time could be a little different. I think this time you could actually run into the October 10th event. Especially if we get good economic data. Like, if we get good economic data, that's going to be the biggest driver in sending Tesla stock higher. And, although I'm still kind of in that hard landing camp, still am in the hard landing camp, ultimately, I do think from now until October, we don't have to see the economy just deteriorate, right? And as long as we're not getting more and more negative economic data, I think that does provide some room for Tesla stock to run here. So I do think between now and October 10th, we could see a rally into the 300s. Now, I'm not expecting too much past 300. I do think 300 will be a bit of resistance, the same level we really peaked out at in July of 2023. But I do think 300 would be a level in which would make sense before that Robo-taxi event, October 10th. And if we do not rally into October 10th, if we kind of stay around these prices that we're at right now, then I do think after October 10th event, you're going to get a buy the news event. You're going to get a rally afterwards, because I do think we're going to get some better than expected updates from the Robotaxi event on October 10th. And really the one thing that matters for Tesla stock is, do we get guidance on the Robotaxi event? Do we learn when Tesla's expecting the first Robotaxi rides to actually occur? That is the most important thing, is guidance when the event actually, comes itself, right? If we don't get guidance on when Tesla's expecting to launch the Robotaxi network, that's a bigger problem for Tesla stock. Let me know what you think about all of this information down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.